A lot of people are celebrating with families. It's in some senses it's really kind of an intimate celebration because um, people have worked very hard, and the theme of this campaign has been that we have a candidate um, who has empathy and is sympathetic and understanding of the kind of trauma and difficulties that the American public are going through, as opposed to someone who's been in the White House for the last 4 years, who seems to be um, immune and insensitive to the trials that the average person are going through, in terms of what it means to try and manage with someone that you love who has COVID, or um, the struggles that you go through because of COVID, because of your economic circumstances. And so Donald Trump has exhibited a complete lack of empathy or understanding, and I think a large part of what won the campaign for Joe Biden is the fact that he has experienced such severe sorrow and family tragedy, that he has a sensitivity to the things that other people are going through like this. Um, so in a lot of ways, a lot of people are celebrating by watching the inauguration with their own families. If they wanted to, they could tune in to a giant Zoom call with a couple of hundred Democrats Abroad UK members who were watching the inauguration together. Um, he is really genuinely trying to reach out to amend, um, to try and mend some of the divisiveness that we've experienced over the last 4 years. Um, he has been around in Washington long enough to build a lot of relationships on both sides of the aisle, and I think he is very much the person who can try and bring us together if anybody can. I was impressed that the very first thing that he did when he flew from Delaware down to Washington yesterday, he got off the plane and he went straight to this event at the Lincoln Memorial, um, which is, I would say, if we have a kind of um, a site of national reconciliation, it's probably the Lincoln Memorial. Um, and so he goes straight there, and he hosts this event to recognize the hundreds of thousands of people who have died from being infected with the coronavirus. And it was the first time that anybody really genuinely, made a gesture like that, on that scale. And I think that really said something. I'd say it's very genuine. To be fair, I think one of the driving forces in this election was Donald Trump. Um, he was a pulling factor and a pushing factor, as say. In my day job, I'm a teacher of AP Government and Politics in a central London school. So we often talk about factors that push voters towards um, one candidate and pull them, uh, towards another. Um, in Trump, I know he attracted a lot of Republican support because of his policy priorities, but he also drove a lot of people away and into the arms of the Democratic Party because he was an incredibly offensive character. He had no respect for the basic institutions of government. He had no respect for the basic institutions of democracy. He had no respect for the general rule of law. Um, and he showed that on a daily basis. He constantly berated and abused and attacked journalists and had no respect for the role of a free press. Yeah, I mean, how many hours do you have to talk about this? Again, now, I think that a lot of us, I think that the American public went into the 2016 election um, with, uh, without a clear understanding of what Donald Trump was all about. And nobody wanted to believe some of the things, some of the warning signs that were given off at the time. Um, from the very first day, um, in the way that he abused other candidates, particularly some of the female candidates that were running in the Republican primary, and his incredibly harsh and rude and abusive language that he used in describing his fellow female Republican presidential candidates. Um, and when he did get elected and he had his inauguration and he lied about the numbers of people that attended his inaugural, and when challenged about it, his spokespeople said, we have a different set of facts. We have an alternate set of facts. Many people kind of laughed it off as here is an outsider who's determined not to play the Washington game. But this is a guy who has a commitment to not telling the truth and just doing whatever is expedient, whatever suits him. I think Joe Biden is an eminently capable guy. He has got a lifetime of experience. He understands how to make government work for the people. And I think that is what is desperately needed. Everybody talked when Donald Trump came in, his supporters, were thrilled at the fact of having a non-politician in, like a bull in the china shop. He was going to shake things up. And a lot of what he did was, yes, to shake things up, but you take his constant complaints about Obamacare and his constant promise to try and nullify Obamacare and potentially replace it with something else. Well, he did neither. He never did anything to eliminate Obamacare, and he never had a plan for replacing it. It was just absurd and ridiculous, and it was just inept. And like his handling of the COVID crisis, it was inept. And I think what's so appealing about Joe Biden is he's had this experience of decades of knowing how government works, how to work with both colleagues in his own party and in the opposing party, and how to actually get things done. Government, working for the government is a service to the public. And in Trump's mind, that was kind of for chumps and losers, like he said about the military. The soldiers were, you serve in the military, you're a chump, you're a loser. And he had a very different idea of what it means to work in government service. And I think Joe Biden respects the office and understands that the whole idea about being an elected official is that you are there to get things done. And I think that Joe Biden knows how to do that, given all his decades of experience. He's no spring chicken. Everybody knows that. I think he's managing himself very well. He's got a team of very able people around him. Again, he's smart enough to know what his limits are, and I think that he by the choices that he's made for his cabinet and the choices that he's made for his close advisors, I think he's demonstrated a great wisdom in knowing that the way to get things done is to surround yourself with smart, capable people and delegate. And I think that that's what he's doing, and that's what's been demonstrated so far. I think that the inauguration came off very smoothly, considering we have unprecedented conditions both in terms of security and health issues. And I think it was a remarkable achievement to do it all so smoothly and to do the things that he did, that we talked about already, the event at the Lincoln Memorial, and the church service this morning and the inauguration itself. He was determined, despite a lot of advice to the contrary, he was determined to hold the inauguration on the steps of the Capitol, which is considered to be the people's house, to hold it there as tradition kind of has dictated, as a sign of the transition of power, the peaceful transition of power, despite the fact that there was a deadly riot there just a few days before. So I give him a lot of credit for that. I mean, I have to say, look, there have been so many moments when, as an American living overseas, that you just kind of cringe watching what's coming out of the White House. I mean, I can't tell you how many times, even and then even when Trump came over here and his interactions with the royal family and the way that he treated our traditional allies, and he was really is just an incredible egotistical bully, with no respect for other leaders or anybody else. Um,
from the floor of the Korean Assembly.
I used to say about somebody asked me what was it like to be here when Obama was president, and I said it was it's kind of like being a roadie for a rock star. I'm an American representing America overseas, and I was very proud to do that during the Obama years, and then during the Trump years, as I say, hardly a day went by when there wasn't a moment where you just kind of cringed with embarrassment of the way things were being run.